Echoes in the Canopy by Edwina Longbottom, Chapter 1, Into the Heart of Darkness. The helicopter's rotors cut through the dense, humid air, shrouding its occupants in a reverberating echo of blades and beating hearts. As they descended into the vast emerald expanse of the northern Queensland rainforest, Tom's gaze fixed on the shifting treetops below, a kaleidoscope of deep greens flecked with sunlight. This world was alive, vibrant, and yet haunted. Lush foliage masked secrets and shadows that stretched beyond the limits of his sight and understanding. Tom, a grizzled veteran with a hardened exterior, felt the adrenaline running through his veins as the jungle approached. His mind, owned by years of survival and combat, was sharp as ever, and yet he knew that this mission was different. Not just another training exercise, it carried the weight of the inexplicable, an enigma wrapped in the guise of nature itself. As they touched down in a small clearing, Tom glanced to his left at Elizabeth. The cool, calculated demeanor of the seasoned psychiatrist was offset by a hint of curiosity in her eyes, the reflection of someone constantly probing the world for deeper understanding. He knew little about her role in this mission, which only added to his sense of unease. Elizabeth, as if sensing his silent scrutiny, offered a small, reassuring smile. It was enigmatic and comforting at the same time, her way of building an invisible bridge over the chasm of mistrust and uncertainty. Grace stood on the other side of the helicopter, her stance rigid with purpose. Her Queensland police uniform, now exchanged for practical jungle gear, had become a second skin that carried the weight of those she had lost, colleagues and friends taken by the shadow. Her eyes burned with determination, a contrast to the somber lines etched into her weather-beaten face by years under the Australian sun. George, the attack dog, sprang nimbly from the chopper, his muscular form poised for action, sniffing the air with newfound interest. His presence was a comforting constant for Tom, a reminder of a partnership that transcended the chaos of battlefields. Together, the team formed an unlikely alliance, drawn by fate into the uncharted horizons of this primal realm. The forest enveloped them immediately, a living cathedral of towering kopaks and strangler figs. Vines sinuously wove their way across the undergrowth, while unseen birds called out in haunting melodies, creating a symphony of life amidst the tense overtones of danger. The air was thick with the scent of fertile soil and decaying leaves, a sensory overload that rendered the world outside distant and unreal. "Stay sharp," Tom cautioned, his voice barely above a whisper, a reflexive need to respect the sanctity of the forest's unbroken silence. "We're here to uncover whatever's been stalking this wilderness." Elizabeth nodded, crouching by a cluster of ferns. "Animals respond to stress much like humans. The signs will tell us a story of trauma, fear, survival instinct, pushing them into patterns we might not immediately recognize," she replied, brushing aside a leaf with clinical precision. Grace huffed, scanning the perimeter. "For all we know, this thing is a ghost. The way it moves, one moment it's there, the next gone, as if it's playing with us." Tom checked his gear, then locked eyes with Grace. "Ghost or not, we're hunters. We adapt, we survive. Let's move out." The team forged deeper into the rainforest, each step an act of intrusion into a world caught in timeless struggle. The sun filtered through the canopy in mosaic patterns, shifting with the wind's breath. Around them, unseen skittering in the underbrush played counterpoint to the constant thrum of insect life. Their progress was deliberate and methodical, driven by Tom's combat strategies and Elizabeth's analytical insights. Tension simmered within the group, each member acutely aware of their own vulnerabilities amid the forest's intimidating beauty. As the first day faded into night, they set camp by a sluggish creek that glimmered darkly under the creeping dusk. A campfire flickered hesitantly, casting elongated shadows among the trees, their twisted shapes dancing like eldritch specters in the flickering light. "Elizabeth," Tom inquired, poking the fire with a stick, "I get that your skills are invaluable here. But there's more, isn't there? Something they didn't tell us?" Elizabeth sighed, the sound almost lost in the forest's nocturnal chorus. "The unseen plays on the mind. Fear, anxiety, it distorts our perception. My role is to unravel that, to understand what drives not just the predator, but us as well." She paused, meeting Tom's eyes across the fire. "What we don't understand, we fill in with fear." Her words lingered in the air, weaving between the shadows cast by the flames, mingling with the distant hoots and howls of the jungle's night. They seemed to resonate a hidden truth, something Tom couldn't escape from, his own past haunted by shadows he had yet to conquer. Grace approached, her eyes somber pools reflecting the flickering light. "Tomorrow we need to check the old trails," she said, her voice wavering slightly but firm. "The locals avoid them now. They say the jungle's closing in, whatever that means." Tom nodded, adjusting his seating to include George by his side. The dog leaned into him, content yet alert. "First light, then," Tom confirmed, sensing the weight of unspoken resolve in Grace. Her commitment to this mission rode personal undertones, whispering of loss and an unyielding thirst for closure. As the forest slipped deeper into the night's embrace, its denizens raised a chorus to punctuate the silence. Elizabeth's gaze drifted away toward the dark forms pressing at the boundaries of their camp. "It's like the jungle itself is alive," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Tom agreed, feeling an eerie acknowledgement in the core of his being, a premonition, a hint of the entangled destinies lying ahead. They settled into a tentative rhythm, sleep coming fitfully between the pulse of the forest and the shadows that lay in wait. Chapter 2: The Jungle's Embrace. The morning sun ascended, casting light through diamond-edged leaves, dazzling in its transient glory. Their breaths crystallized in the still cool air as the group dismantled the camp, resuming their silent march into the depths of verdant mystery. Grace led the way, navigating trails that were more suggestion than path, her instincts sharpened by years of tracking fugitives across the untamed Australian wilds. This terrain, though, was different. Each step echoed an uneasy harmony between predator and prey, a balance as delicate as the spiral of a fern. They pressed on, their footsteps muted by the embrace of leaf litter and moss. George trotted ahead, his nose twitching with anticipation, occasionally pausing to glance back at Tom, a constant reassurance amidst the looming flora. A hush came over them as Elizabeth stopped, pointing silently at an anomaly in their path. The underbrush seemed unnaturally disturbed, a twisted mess of snapped branches and scattered leaves tinged with dark stains. Tom crouched beside the site, reaching out with a practiced hand to sift through the soil. "Something happened here," he said, scanning the surrounding area. "Looks recent." Grace knelt beside him, her fingers trailing through the muck. "The pattern, it looks like something was dragged," she noted, tracing the indentation leading further into the thick growth. Her expression, usually guarded, now reflected a glimmer of something more than professional scrutiny, perhaps the crackle of hope mingled with dread. Elizabeth assessed the scene, her mind piecing together the psychological puzzle laid bare before them. The attack wasn't mindless, she reasoned. Whatever left this behind, it was systematic, purposeful in its intention. They followed the trail, the undergrowth threatening to swallow all traces of their passage. Tension wove its way into their movements, the forest growing denser and more oppressive with each step, as if the lush canopy conspired with secrets long buried beneath its roots. As the sun reached its zenith, they arrived at a small clearing, sunlight streaming down like a spotlight onto a crude memorial of bones and feathers strung together. A chill swept through them, tangible fear tinged with the poignant dust of despair. Tom examined the site, unease unfolding within him like ferns under the sun. Elizabeth stood by, observing with scholarly fascination etched through the veneer of her professional mask. This isn't random," she whispered, her voice a thread in the tapestry of natural sound. "It's a warning," Grace added, her jaw set. Her eyes scanned the surrounding perimeter, drawing lines between tension, grief, and a willful challenge. They stood surrounded by the essence of the predator, its intelligence echoing through the jungle's living heart. "Keep alert," Tom ordered, gesturing for George to sniff the area. The dog obeyed, moving with caution and focus, before pausing, ears alert, muscles tense. An involuntary growl rumbled from its throat, low and ominous. Following the dog's lead, Tom peered into the thicket, his senses heightened, attuned to the shadow of a presence that lurked just beyond the reach of comprehension. The shadow, this force of nature or perhaps a manifestation of their collective fears, stared back, cloaked by the very world it had claimed. "We need to move, regroup at a safe location," Tom instructed, eyeing the dense weave of foliage that seemed to ripple with unseen movements. The clearing, despite its somber beauty, was no place for long contemplation. They were intruders encroaching on sacred ground. The group retraced their steps with deliberate caution, leaving the eerie monument behind but carrying its silent warning with them. Tom led with measured steps, George at his side, tail low and nose to the ground. The ever-thickening canopy overhead seemed to press closer, a tangible presence that darkened the path ahead. As they ventured deeper, the atmosphere changed subtly, an intangible shift from curiosity to an oppressive weight that bore down upon them. Every sound, every rustle, every brush of leaves against bark felt magnified within the jungle's echo, playing tricks on their nerves. Chapter 3: In the Shadow's Domain. The team paused to take stock by a wide stream, its waters dappled by sunlight streaming through gaps in the overgrown canopy. Tom scanned the surroundings, eyes tracing potential routes, exits, and perches. He understood the rules of engagement. This was not merely hunt or be hunted. It required patience, cunning, and an ability to anticipate the predator's moves. Grace examined their map, its waterproof surface covered in marks and notations. "We should be nearing a set of old logging tracks," she mentioned, her voice clinical, determined. "They haven't been used in years, but could give us a clearer view of the terrain." Elizabeth tuned into the conversation, mindful of the delicate balance between man and nature. "If the shadow is what we suspect, something intelligent, it knows its territory intimately. We're the outsiders here, figuring out a place that defies maps and logic." Her insight was like a tremor in Tom's mind, a reminder of the complex dance they were part of, guided as much by instinct as intellect. Clearer terrain could mean exposure too, Tom countered, considering their options. They were on a razor's edge, wayward travelers treading a path written in shadows. Stay close, move quietly. The stream was a temporary ally, cooling their skin beneath its liquid caress, yet reminding them of the vital stakes, the shape of survival in this wild tapestry of green and gold. As they moved, Elizabeth fell in step with Tom, sensing his internal chaos mirrored in the peaceful exterior he presented. "Tom, about your past, there's more than what we know here, isn't there?" She probed gently, searching for the human behind the soldier. His brows furrowed as her question awakened memories long suppressed, hidden fears and events he wished to keep locked away. Yet, Tom knew the answer lay in trust, shared burdens across boundless landscapes. "I've dealt with shadows before," he admitted, cryptic but opening a sliver of his guarded self. "Things not easily explained or erased." Elizabeth nodded, recognizing the threads intertwining their fates. "In the end, our understanding of others starts with what we uncover about ourselves." Their moment, though brief, resonated amidst the foliage, lending a sliver of clarity against thick chaos. Grace, ever resolute, watched the interaction, feeling her own pulse steady with the shared revelation. She, too, felt the past shadows in her heart, faint specters she couldn't confront alone. Evening descended, suspended in hues of twilight. Their pace slowed as fatigue wove through their limbs, but a sense of unity and urgency kept them moving as one. They camped once more, the fire a contained flicker in the ocean of darkness surrounding them. As the stars burned brightly in the snippets of sky visible through the leaves, Elizabeth caught Tom's eye, embers from the fire mirrored within them. "We may face danger, even death," she acknowledged. "But remember, understanding this phenomenon could mean saving lives, even if it means facing the darkest parts of ourselves." Grace listened quietly, drawing strength from Elizabeth's words. Her resolve hardened. This was her fight, a fight for those lost, their memories urging her onward. Chapter 4: Unraveling the Mystery. Morning returned, lifting the cloak of night from the land. They encountered signs, the shredded bark, the strange claw marks on stone that whispered of the shadow's passage. The realization settled as a palpable tension. They were on the cusp of truth. By mid-afternoon, pressing further along the faint traces of an old trail, George alerted them with a bark, standing taut, gaze fixed upon a distant ridge. What the dogs sensed beyond human acuity, they soon discovered. The air was charged, dust particles floating lazily as if awaiting revelation. In a moment of idle comprehension, Tom considered the pattern, a familiar tactic of ambush now drawn upon the canvas of rain-mingled earth. "The ridge," he nodded to Grace. High ground view, it's where we'd be most vulnerable, but also holds the key to understanding the predator's domain. Moving cautiously toward the ridge, they found themselves in an area where the forest thinned, the trees giving way to rocky outcrops that afforded an expansive view over the rainforest's verdant labyrinth. The vantage point revealed broad swaths of the landscape, an intricate web of life and mystery concealed below. Elizabeth's eyes widened as she observed the scene, piecing together fragments of behavior and territory marked in the patterns of growth and disturbance. It's not random. Look at the pathways, almost like arterial routes through the forest. It's orchestrating movement, channeling creatures to its advantage. A noise disrupted the tranquility, echoing from a crevice glittering with its own secretive allure. Tom motioned for silence, his senses sharp, and together they approached the source of the sound, George leading the way, hesitant but resolute. The sound, they realized, was a subtle harmony of life, voices murmuring along the breeze, not ghosts, but a discovery profound in depth and implication. As they neared, they found themselves on the cusp of something both ancient and alien. Engraved into the rock were symbols, markings of a language lost in folds of time, imbued with eerie familiarity. They spoke of connections between earth, sky, and creatures, an interwoven symbiotic system embracing the cycles of life and death. Grace's hand traced the markings gently, feeling the tender touch of history beneath her fingertips. My ancestors might have understood this language, she whispered, a tone swept away by the natural symphony around them. Indigenous stories talk about guardians of the forest, protectors. We've always been taught they were myth. What if? Tom, Elizabeth, and Grace exchanged glances heavy with the weight of discovery and realization. The shadow wasn't a mindless predator, but part of a larger ecological harmony, a guardian maintaining balance, its actions dictated by a delicate interplay between humanity and nature disrupted by outside forces. Understanding surged through Elizabeth. We didn't see it before because we approached it as something to be hunted. Instead, it should be understood, respected. This forest has been communicating all along. Their determination redoubled, any fears replaced by respect and purpose. It was no human war they faced, but a path to understanding, a journey beyond what their senses could comprehend. Chapter 5, A New Dawn. With the realization transforming their mission, Tom gathered his team in a renewed spirit of alliance, not solely with each other, but with the forest itself. As the sun dipped on the horizon, painting the sky in strokes of orange and purple, they descended the ridge, retracing their steps with insight colored by newfound enlightenment. Grace, who had carried loss and vengeance like twin burdens, now found solace in a deeper understanding. Her resolve to protect became her guiding force, aligned with the intricate dance of nature around them. Elizabeth, whose art lay in unraveling the human mind, now saw the threads of this mystery woven in patterns older than words or thoughts. Her quest for truth twisted into unity, bridging the divides between nature and the human psyche. Tom, accustomed to shadows both external and within, found peace in the realization that some mysteries were not meant to be shredded in the harsh light of pursuit, but embraced for their wisdom. Partnered with George, their bond reaffirmed, they moved forward, guardians of a truth ready to be shared. Now, fully armed with insights beyond training and instinct, they would return, not with trophies or tales of valor, but stories written in the ageless language of the heart, maps etched in the arcane script of empathy and respect. In the end, the shadow stayed, a keeper of secrets, guardian of the Canopy's echoes, but now revealed in light, its presence a hopeful reminder of the symbiotic tapestry that binds all life. Tom and his companions emerged from the jungle's embrace with understanding woven into every fiber of their being, imprinted by a mystery transcending mere survival. The rainforest stirred one last symphony for them, the echoes of its timeless spirit resonating through the dawn, leading them homeward, back into the unfolding narrative where jungle and humanity met, not in confrontation, but in harmonious accord. The end.